Welcome, everyone, to today's session on digital accessibility, the right thing, the smart thing, and the required thing to do with Michael Johnson. Before we get underway, I do have a little bit of housekeeping. I want to thank this month's sponsor of my newsletter and free classes. It's Barbara Kyle. She is offering a free masterclass for people writing novels and memoir. It helps you understand how to attract an agent or a traditional publisher. Thank you to Barbara Kyle. And allow me to introduce today's guest, Michael Johnson. I met Michael fairly recently for the first time when I was speaking at a publishing conference, an industry conference where evangelical publishers were gathered. And Michael, if I remember correctly, we initially connected because your wife is from, is it Princeton, Indiana? Is that right?
Indeed,
Yes.
indeed, she is Princeton.
Yes, and I grew up in a small town just like 15 miles away from Princeton. So Princeton is the county seat of, of where I grew up, a very, very important place. Our Indiana connection aside, Michael has 40 years of experience in tech, publishing, and education markets. He's currently the VP at Benetech, which is a company that serves people with learning and physical variabilities. And he works directly with the publishing industry to implement Benetech's Global Certified Accessible Program, GCA, to create, distribute, sell, and offer fully accessible ebooks. Now, if you are someone who watches industry news like I do, then you may have seen recently that Amazon has done some important work recently surrounding accessibility in ebooks. I'm sure Michael will be touching on that today. And something that has surprised me the more I learn about this topic is that of the biggest publishers, like the ones sitting in New York, the big five, only one of the five have actually adopted the GCA that you're going to hear Michael discussing today. So I'm hoping that this session brings more awareness to the issue, encourages people to do the right thing, the required thing. And certainly, if you're working with a traditional publisher, we would encourage you to bring this up with them. So, Michael, I'm going to hand things over to you, and I won't interrupt unless there is a burning question.
Okay, thank you very much, Jane, and thank you everyone for coming to hear me talk today. This topic is enormous. It could probably be a 3-credit class at a publishing university or something, but we're going to condense it down. So I'm going to talk fast because that's my nature, and there's a lot to cover. As Jane said, the session is going to be recorded. You can listen to it later. I'm going to put my direct work email up there so you can ask me any questions you want. This is a thing that I care about 24/7, literally 24/7, because I get questions from around the world. So if I say something too quickly or unclear, ask a question. If we don't have time for the question, then feel free to follow up directly with me in email. And while folks generally discourage me from offering that, I do offer it as a demonstration of how committed I am to this process. So we're going to go through some technical details, some operational details, and some conceptual exercises that talks about making your books born accessible. As Jane said, digital accessibility is the right thing, the smart thing, and the required thing to do out in the world today. So I'm just going to jump right in, and provided my laptop behaves itself, we'll just go through this presentation. There we go. So a quick overview of Benetech. So Benetech is a nonprofit, a charity, basically. We are focused on digital accessibility standards and services. We are celebrating 25 years this year of empowering education equity. It's not too late to send a congratulations card in with your cash donation to Benetech. I'm just kidding, but not really. And Benetech is an organization that delivers accessible solutions like Bookshare and the GCA suite of services. So before I get into the meat of the matter, I just want to introduce you to Brian Meersma. So Brian's one of the reasons why I came to work here. My background of those 40 years that Jane mentioned is almost exclusively in the commercial side of things. And now here I am working for a nonprofit. But when you hear stories like Brian's, it's very motivating. And for someone who has 7 teachers in his family, Two of my three sons are librarians. This stuff is very important to me personally. So just a quick overview of Brian's story. So Brian's been using Bookshare, one of Benetech's programs, for over 16 years. He has severe dyslexia to the point where his high school was going to send him down the road of special education and not allow him to be in general education. But then he found Bookshare, which is this massive collection, 1.34 million titles of accessible content, and he completely turned his life around, 180 degrees educationally. He was always smart. He just struggled to actually read the material in front of him, whether it was assigned reading in an English lit class or whether it was a chemistry textbook. So he turned his life around, educational life around, like I said, 180 degrees, graduated top of his class, and then went on to a major university, Cornell, I believe it was, did very well there as an engineer, and is now a senior product manager at Microsoft. So the closing bullet on the slide there, accessibility is not an option, it's essential. Just think about Brian Mearsma, and I have hundreds and hundreds of these stories, which I'm not going to go into, that impact people's lives literally every day. You're out there, you're writers, right? You're writers, you're authors, you're trying to get your message across, whether it's research or whether it's a romance or a history novel, whatever it is you're working on. It's important that you consider all readers. And I like to use Brian's story as an example. So when I say born accessible, what does that mean? Well, first, for those of you who are around at the turn of the last century, there was this massive push about ebooks, and you can blame some of that on me because I was there in the room when that all got started. And we used to say digital, but now we're saying you have to make your books born accessible because digital books are out there. They've been a thing for a long time. Jane probably has better details than I do, but I'd say it's roughly 20% of the marketplace. And if you do it from the beginning, it being accessibility from the beginning, then you will be able to reach all readers, not just select readers. And your book will have the internal features and the metadata that goes with it, the Onyx feed and other things like that, that allow all readers to read and enjoy the material that you put out, learn from, solve mysteries, whatever it is you're writing stories about, right? The three biggies, right? So these are the biggest issues that block digital accessibility. Image descriptions. So images aren't just pictures or drawings. Images are also sometimes at chapter headers. The cover page is an image. There are a lot of images in a book, and you need to describe the images appropriately with alternative text so that somebody with any sort of reading challenge, could be dyslexia, could be blindness, whatever assistive technology they're using, they can see the images or understand the images if they can't see them, because of this alt text that you put in there, alternative text. In-book navigation. So these are things like page numbers, endnotes, footnotes, table of contents, indices, things like that. So if you don't do that properly, then the reader will be lost. And if navigating inside the book is anything more complicated than just turn the next page and read it, then you should think about your in-book navigation. Language shifts is a big deal. Depends on the kind of author, writer you are, what kind of books you're publishing. But if there's a book whose main language is, let's just say, German, and if there's a French phrase in there, if you say something in this German book, you say café au lait or something like that, that's fine. If you say merci, that's fine. But if in this German book, for whatever reason, let's say you're doing a historical fiction and the book is written in German or written in English, but then you're going to have this whole paragraph that's going to be in, say, French, you need to tell the digital book that I'm shifting from the main language of my book to this other language, so that the assistive technology, which is reading the book to the reader, knows to also shift to the other language. And then please, 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 when the second language is complete, shift back to the first language. So there are a lot of details in these three biggies, and there's a bunch of other ones, but I just want to give you some of those things. Another thing to understand is the impact of how many people have these abilities. So I say that digital is the right thing to do. So I ask you, you're a writer, you're an author, you're publishing whatever it is you're publishing. Why do you want to shut out these readers who have print disabilities? And it's not just Sally at the end of the road or Bob, who you knew from high school. It's over 20% of the population. Yale did a good study. You can check with their Yale study on dyslexia, which by itself is more than 20% of the population. So there are more blind people in the world than And there are more people with dyslexia in the world than there are people that are left-handed. So it's not nobody. It's a big percentage of your potential readers. Accessibility standards is another great example. Digital accessibility is another great example where the accessibility standards will benefit everybody. So I have my little thing here, beers, babies, and echoes. So what do I mean by that? So if you've ever been in a bar and there's a TV going on and there's closed captioning at the bottom, so now you can understand what the newscaster is saying or see the score of the game or get the temperatures for the weather or whatever it is that's going on the TV. You have closed captioning because of legislation that mandated broadcasters and TV set producers enabled closed captioning for people with hearing challenges. Yet all of us, I just gave you an example, all of us benefit from this accessibility accommodation and this accessibility legislation. So babies, don't give beers to the babies. Don't be confused by that link. So with babies, now we're talking about baby carriages, or for a guy like me who used to spend 100 days a year on the road, rollerboard luggage. So here we have an accessibility accommodation called curb cuts. We also have an accessibility accommodation where there's a ramp instead of stairs or in addition to stairs. So if you're pushing a baby carriage or you're tugging along your rollerboard, you really benefit from curb cuts and ramps in addition to stairs. They weren't meant for me. These were people with mobility accessibility issues. But that legislation and that change in design and implementation made it a beneficial factor for everyone involved. Echoes or any of the other voice activated services, again, these things were done to help people who had different types of physical interaction problems with electronic devices. So you have the speaker activated services. Now people use them all the time. Siri, Amazon, Echo, whatever different device. So this is just 3 examples that have nothing to do with writing or authoring or publishing or anything to do. But the stress here is these standards, which were designed to help people with certain accessibility challenges, have benefited all of us once they've been implemented. And you can do this too with your writing. So it is the right thing to do. Here's some examples, which I'm hoping my computer will let me do. This is going to show some books here, provided the link out works. And it does not appear to be working. Okay, the links are in the chat in the presentation, and Jane will share those with you. There's a link here from Amazon, the world's largest seller of ebooks. There's a link from VitalSource, which is the world's largest seller of digital content to colleges and universities, and a link from Kobo, which used to be a scrappy little Canadian upstart, but now they're a global concern owned by Rakuten. And these are just some examples of what a good accessibility book looks like from the sales feature. And so in those examples, apologies for the technology challenge, in those examples, you can see these massive retailers. So these are outlets for your work, right? Your digital books could be, hopefully, maybe already are for sale at these various organizations. And these organizations have put in the language, have put in the coding, as Jane said, even at Amazon, to expose the fact that your book has digital content in it so that a buyer who has a print disability would feel comfortable buying your book. So here are some bad examples. If you have image descriptions in your book that just say image, that's not really useful because you're not conveying whatever your image is in there. If you're doing a cookbook and it's an image of eggs, fine. If it's a travel book and it's an image of the Eiffel Tower, fine. If it just says image, you're not helping anybody. Page numbering, not mentioning the print pages. If you have a header 3 without a header 2, that's not how math works. Math goes 1, 2, 3. So if you're going to have a header 3, you should have a header 2. If you have a table of contents, which doesn't link correctly to the particular chapter headings, if your book has a table of contents, and then the language shift pieces. So those are examples of things that go wrong. Now, a lot of this stuff may be brand new to you today. I may be the first person who said any of these things to you. Don't be afraid of this. There are tools out there, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit to help you along here. But these are things which should be simple to do once you get used to doing them, okay? So digital accessibility is the smart thing to do, right? As I said earlier, over 20% of the population has a print disability. So I'm not promising you that your sales will go up by 20%, but I am promising you, well, I shouldn't say promising. I do imagine that the people who can't read books that aren't accessible are not going to buy your book. So at least you're increasing your chances by a large percentage. There will also be increased discoverability beyond the title metadata. So when you send in your descriptive information in Onyx or whatever format you use with your distributor, and you tell it the, author, title, subject, genre, number of pages, price, all those kind of things, you will not include in that, because there's no place to include it, all of the information about all of the images in the book. Let's just say you have a book about the Battle of Gettysburg. Okay, you wrote a historical book, whether it's historical fiction or whether it's nonfiction, and you have some great images from the Battle of Gettysburg. Okay, if you're describing each of those images well, the descriptions of those images are now getting picked up by the people who index things and tell us how to find stuff on the internet. So by including the alt text descriptions of all the images in your book, you will then be giving additional search discoverability to your book. So when someone does a Google search or whatever search it is they do, you increase your chances of having your book found. And as I tried to demonstrate to you, but was unsuccessful, Amazon, Kobo, and Vital Source are also exposing this data. So more and more people are going to be looking, is this book accessible or not? Now, digital accessibility is also the required thing to do. I list this one last on purpose, but it's still important. I put it last on purpose because I think, and I've written a few books myself, I think as authors, we do it for a bunch of reasons, but one of the reasons is we have something to share. We have stories to share, we have poems to share, we have mysteries to share, cookbook recipes to share, family histories, whatever it is we're writing about, we have things to share. So it's the right thing to do to expand out, to share that with as many people as possible. It's also the smart thing to do, as I said earlier, because it enhances your chances for sale. Well, it's additionally the required thing to do. The EAA is the European Accessibility Act. If you want to sell your books anywhere in the EU, they have to be accessible, or else you're in violation of the individual laws of the 27 member nations of the EAA. So if you're looking for European distribution, you're looking for European sales, your books have to be accessible, or else they will not be up for sale. Title II and the American with Disabilities Act, that's here in the United States. The American with Disabilities Act is 35 years old now. And over the course of time, there's been a tremendous amount of enhancement around the laws of digital accessibility. They began with physical accessibility, ramps and stairs and braille on the bathroom signs and all that kind of stuff. But now in the recent years, it's been talking about digital accessibility. And Title II is basically a thing that says if you're a government entity, whether you're a school, a university, a library, a city, a county government, whatever, everything that shows up on a computer screen has to be fully accessible. And so if you hope to or already sell your books to, say, colleges, universities, libraries, once again, you'll be required to have your books be digital accessible. So the EU, that's international across the 27 member countries. Title II is, of course, just here in the United States. There are a lot of state laws that impact these same things. So again, if your target audience or one of your add-on audiences are schools, public libraries, anything like that, universities, then your books are going to be impacted by this. There are state laws in states like Maryland, Colorado, Missouri, and Texas, which are even stricter. And those kind of institutions who are spending public money to buy your books will be held accountable to that. There's also some very aggressive legislation in France. France, of course, is an EU member, but the French government has already sued 3 different retailers in France under the EAA, so that's underway. Several provinces in Canada are passing similar legislation, and there's a huge discussion piece right now in India, which is the largest market for everything, around digital accessibility. So it is the required thing to do.
Quick
And
question, Michael.
yes, Jane.
Sandra is asking, is some of what you're discussing related to Section 508 compliance?
So 508 is one of the many impacts around Title II. So there's 508 and 504. Some of those are pretended or particular to K through 12, some of them broader education, but the American with Disabilities covers anybody with a print disability in the entire United States of America, student, staff, general population, you know, lawyer, doctor, barber, whatever. So yes, 508 and 504 are impacted. They're sort of subsets of these broader legislation. It's an excellent question. Thank you. So the right thing to do, the smart thing to do, the required thing to do. So what can you do today? I'm sitting here as somebody who does this every minute of every day and has been doing it for 7 years. This may be the first time you've ever heard any of this, right? So what can you do, right? When we're done talking or when I'm done talking today, and you reflect on what you've learned, and you decide you do want to do something about it, you want to treat people equally and fairly, do the right thing, you want to do the smart thing to give yourself more opportunity to sell your works, and you want to participate in the required thing so you can distribute in these various areas. There are tools out there already today that support accessibility. If you're using Word to write your book, there are accessibility checkers built into Word. So just click on the accessibility checker and it'll give you some quick feedback, right? Bookalope is a platform that is Benetech approved. So we've looked at the output from this platform, and we know if the user does the right thing while they're writing, Bookalope will ensure that their book is fully accessible and feed it onto the supply chain. ACE by Daisy, right? So Daisy is a global consortium. I say we because I'm on the board there. Daisy is a global digital standards consortium, and they have a tool called ACE, which you can download and run against your EPUB output, and it will tell you what you did right and what you did wrong. Now, I need to offer a word of caution here. You're going to hear a lot of people probably in time say a lot of things about technology can do this for you. Technology can be very useful, but technology cannot do this for you. And ACE is a good example. It's a tremendous checker for the things that a machine can check, which is probably about 35 or 38% of the errors that may occur. So when your book is done and you run the ACE checker against it, if it reports an error, clearly you've done something wrong. But please don't think, oh, I ran ACE and I got a clean bill of health, so I'm okay. No, there's a lot of stuff that it can't check for. And please don't believe anybody who tells you, oh, yeah, you just run it through this piece of technology and you're all good. That's not the case. You can read up, right? You can go to daisy.org. There's a ton of information about digital accessibility, about different reading systems. There are test files that you can look at. There's all kinds of stuff. There's the Daisy knowledge base, which is literally a global collection of people who are creating, attempting to read, and working with different assessments and different systems on digital accessibility. You can also go to benetech.org for other resources. So these are things that are easy to do. If you're using Word, turn on the accessibility checker. If you're looking for a platform that will help you make sure you output content in a fully accessible fashion, take a look at Bookaloop. If you want to do your own internal checking, run ACE by Daisy. You can do all these things by yourself. These are simple tools. You can do the reading. You can look at daisy.org or benetech.org. You can get other resources. Okay. Here's a list of some resources on the technical specifications, right? So the first one on the EPUB specifications, and again, Jane will have all this available for you. So EPUB is the format, it's the carrier, right? That is how the file is built. And then WCAG, which is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, 2.2 AA is the current standard. That's the accessibility pieces, right? What about my table of contents? What about the image for my cover? What about this reading order and all those kind of things? The DAISY Consortium, as I said, a ton of information there. And then Bookalope as an example. For some reason, I didn't include my own employer on my slide there. Sorry about that. It's benetech.org. It's not that complicated. So, I'm covering a lot of ground. I'm saying a lot of things. We had one great question. Thank you for that. We're just about done with the talk because I'm anticipating a lot of questions, but we'll see. All right. So here are the thank yous, right? The first thank you is thank you all day, every day for the work you do. Writing is important. It's really important. Writing and reading are important skills, social skills, intellectual skills, connection skills. So thank you for coming today. Thank you for being a writer, an author, a publisher, whatever part you are. The next thank you is thank you for taking a step. You've taken a step already. You're here today, right? You're listening to me go on and on. So thank you for taking a step. And then I beseech you to take another step. And feel free to reach out to me directly. There it is for everybody here and, all your cousins and dogs and whatever you're going to share that with. I don't care. I'm basically a vampire. I'm awake 24 hours a day. I'll get back to you as quickly as I can, which might be 2 minutes, it might be 2 days, but I will get back to you as quickly as I can. This entire organization, Benetech, exists to help people solve this problem. So I beseech you to let us help you solve this problem. If you want to donate your books to Bookshare, you can do that. You can reach out to me too, and I'll put you in contact with those folks for your donations. We're always looking for good and interesting content. We're open for questions. Jane, over to you. I'll
Terrific.
stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Michael. So I have a question to start. I would love for you to tell this group what you told me prior to beginning, which is I said I was a little surprised that there weren't more publishers, especially the bigger publishers, participating in these standards. And you said there are basically three buckets that I put them into of why they're not doing it. Would you share that?
Yeah, the first bucket, to be kind, the first bucket is people don't seem to understand, right? And this is a struggle for me because I lived this 24 hours a day for 7 years, so I understand it very well. But that's not fair to expect the general population to understand it because you don't live it 24 hours a day. So oftentimes, if I can sit down with head of house or head of production or even from sales, but now with the Amazon and the other laws, and you explain to them, look, we're not going to the moon here. This is a straightforward process. If you just pay attention and you can do it. And so most publishers go in. We have almost 100 organizations around the world who are involved in the program. So the first one is they just don't know. Probably like most of the people in the audience today, Jane, they just don't know, right? And we can't rely on me talking to all 8 billion people on the earth. So that's why I appreciate your amplification of my message. The next one is people who think they're doing a great job internally, which is typically not true. Not that those internal people are not good people. I'm sure they're all good people. I'm sure all the production people who work for all the publishers in all the world are good people. But it is something which requires very specific, particular expertise. And your quote unquote normal production processes don't take these things into account. And I'll give you the most glaring example. The most glaring example is print page fidelity. This is more important in an educational environment than it is in a general reading population environment, but it's still important. So most people, when they think about ebooks, don't think about pages at all. It's just an HTML file. It's on my Kindle or it's on my Android, whatever. But print page fidelity is very important for someone who struggles with, say, dyslexia or low vision or blindness, because you literally don't know where you are in the book. If you're in an educational setting, let's say your book gets adopted, Jane, let's say you write something, it becomes part of the publishing program at NYU or something like that, which should happen, by the way, Jane, get on that. And the professor says, well, for next week's class, I need you to read from page 80 to page 110, right? Well, that's print page 80 to print page 110, okay? So if that's reflowing on my Android, my page 80 is probably like book page 46 or something because my pages are smaller. So now you failed me. The person who created the ebooks completely failed me. I can't reach from page 80 to 110 because my page 80 is not page 80. So that's a simple thing. But a lot of people in ebook production don't think about pages at all. So that's an example, right? The other example is people who either don't understand or don't care, and I don't want to cast any aspersions, so I'm not sure which one it is, that this thing is legally required, that this is going to have a negative impact on sales, and that the costs associated with doing it properly are not significant. There are costs, absolutely. I don't want to kid anybody, but they're not significant costs. You should be building fully accessible books anyway, because that just means it's a well-formatted book. Like, don't have a header 3 without a header 2, because that's not how math works, as I said earlier. But in layout, sometimes because people are print focused, well, they like the H3, the indenting or whatever artistic view that gives them on the printed page, which doesn't carry to the digital page. So, and there are some people who just don't care. They don't care. They don't care. They think they don't have to care about those readers, or they think those people, whoever those people are, don't read their books. And I'll give you a great example, and that's color blindness. So
Mm.
in a lot of books, maybe a lot of the audience here, they're just writing books with words. That sounds stupid. They're writing books that are like, are we doing books without words? Just writing books that are all words, which are great, right? But if you're starting to introduce images, and this is a academic context, right? Let's say they're trying to convey something in an economics class, and there's a bar chart. There's a blue bar, a green bar, a red bar, and a yellow bar. If comprehension of the concept is dependent on me knowing which one I'm blue-green colorblind, you have failed me. And by the way, you're breaking the law. You have failed me in that education setting by not giving me an alternate text description that explains the first bar is blue, et cetera. So these are simple things. I'm not talking about going to the moon, right? I'm not trying to solve the energy crisis here. I'm just talking about simple things. And if they thought more about it while they were doing this, they would lay the books out better in the first place, which is what we're trying to accomplish. One workflow for all readers. Very long answer, but I hope that was useful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. The examples really help promote understanding. Um, so Liz is wondering if I have a traditional publisher, how would you suggest raising this issue if they don't have any of these processes in place? Is there somewhere that you would point them for a start, whether that's Benetech or some other set of guidelines?
Right. So I think I would show them the examples that I was unable to show because of my technology challenges. The fact that, the major retailers in the universe are now displaying this information and readers are going to start making choices, right? If you have a set in series, if you have Harry Potter or whatever, which by the way, Harry Potter is fully accessible, but if you have Harry Potter, the next Harry Potter book or the next book in any sort of mystery series or whatever, the next Grisham, that's going to sell anyway, right? But if you have a book which people have a choice, well, I'm just looking for a romance novel. Okay. Well, if I'm just looking for a romance novel and they're romance novels that are fully accessible and I have a print disability, I'm going to buy those, not yours because I can't read yours. So I think if the author begins to put in some pressure, especially around the Amazon thing, that's it. It's also like an author care issue. As an author, if you say, look, accessibility is really important to me for whatever your reasons, we just had somebody, one of our board members, who basically complained to their publisher because their book was not accessible, and we got it fixed, right? Benetech's not in the fix your book business, so we can't fix it for you. But reach out. I'm happy to give you plenty of ammunition for that conversation with your publisher.
That's right. Um, let's see. Jim is asking, is there an agency that you can hire to do this for you? And if you're an author, is there a consultancy service that you could recommend?
Sure. So the first thing I would recommend is look at a tool like Bookalope because it's built into that platform, right? Just
Okay.
behave yourself, follow the prompts of the system, and it will make sure you don't make any design mistakes. So that's the simplest thing to do. It's a piece of software, and you get, I don't know what the licensing terms are. I'm not a salesperson, but just look at their licensing terms, and then you'll be able to do it by your own hands, right? Um, there are a number of producers of fully accessible ebooks. They tend to be the large conversion houses who work
Mm.
for the major publishers. So probably out of reach of this general audience, right? There is Laura Brady in Canada. Laura is an expert in this area specifically around accessibility production flow, and she will help you handcraft books. Um, so yeah, those are some quick examples. But again, I gave you some tools. Word will help you. Bookalope will help you. You can do it yourself. You can. And I'll give you an example. Somebody Jane, Michael Laron, right? So Michael
Mhm.
Laron, prolific author, right? Written like 100 books or something. He and I, of course, because he lives in Iowa and I live in Wisconsin, we met in Saudi Arabia, naturally, obviously. And we had a conversation about this over dinner. And when I saw him the next day at breakfast, he had already taken all of his books and run them through the necessary changes overnight, basically, to do it. So Michael's a strong technical guy. I'm not saying everybody should have that technical expertise, but again, we're not going to the moon here. This is pretty straight. Once you learn how to do it, it's pretty straightforward.
Terrific. Um, I don't, have you ever given this presentation, Michael, to the Independent Book Publishers Association, the IBPA?
I have done something similar with IBPA, yes, and
I'm
with
just
Ally.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if those organizations, they have their own resource lists. And so for those of you who listening who are members of the IBPA or Ally, I would check their resource lists and recommended service providers to see if they have specific places that they recommend that you go. Um, okay. So next question is from Lana. I think it's a bit of a slant question. She's asking, are there supports for people writing who have disabilities? That is, humans that support the process while learning this tech. Not quite sure I fully understand the question. I'm not sure if she's asking if there's support for writers who have disabilities or something else.
Um, so I would give you the same two answers there. I would say using the Microsoft Word and using Booklet would be examples. If you're having a particular challenge and you want to send me an email, we have several print disabled people who work here at Benetech, the full range, blind, dyslexic, low vision, whatever. So they may have some more. Once I better understand your question, again, you have my email. Once I better understand your question, I can give you a better answer.
Terrific. Thank you. Margie's wondering if the resources you've mentioned get into things like appropriate fonts and sizes. Does that come into play with these resources and tools?
I believe you would find primarily at the DAISY knowledge base, those types of things. One of the things about accessibility is what you want to do is have your content be fully reflowable so that the reader says, this is the font that's good for me, and they can lay that font
Right.
down over top of your. But yes, certainly there are guidelines. And again, if you don't find what you need, send me an email. I'll have one of my folks give you some specific answers. What you don't want to do is, you got to be careful with things like drop caps at the beginning of chapters and things. There's so many things, Jane. I mean, we could just sit on the road between Princeton and Oakland City right there and talk about this for days and days. And I'm sure you'd be fascinated. So yeah, there's so many details, but the important thing is get started, right? Just get going. And if you have a question, Benetech will help you, right? We can't do the work for you. Um, but we can help you by informing you how to do the work.
Shirley is wondering for those writers who are doing websites, blogs, Substacks, online writing, are there any additional tips or guidance for that type of material, making sure it's accessible?
Yeah, I would say on the web, so the WCAG guidelines, 2.2 AA, that's for anything digital. So the webs that they actually got started with web stuff. So that's a good place to go. I would say on the web, the things you really want to be careful about are color and contrast, because those are huge blockers, huge blockers. Um, Fonting is another issue, and making sure that everything that you're doing, if it's just text, it's not as complicated. But make sure that if there's any kind of drop downs or buttons or things like that on whatever it is you're doing, and links to other places, that you're conscious and aware that somebody would need to use a keyboard to do that, and that can they do that? Can they use a keyboard to click on that button, because they might not be able to see that button, or might not have enough motor control to click on that button, so they can do it through a keyboard command. So those are the big ones: fonting, color and contrast, and keyboard manipulation.
Terrific. Um, and there's some folks putting into the chat some resources to help with that, some, online tools that will direct people. Let's see. Michelle has a question that pertains to the language switch accessibility
Sure.
issue. She says she's self-publishing and has created, she's used checkers, the accessibility checkers, but one issue she hasn't heard about is this language switching issue. She's
Mhm.
asking, do you just use it in the book text, or is it some kind of code that is used like the alt text
So it's markup code. So
markup?
you're not going to be writing a chapter and then saying, I'm now switching to German. No, these are technical tags inside of the HTML markup for the book itself. And so you declare a main language of the book, pick it Swahili, whatever.
Hmm.
And then when you go to change languages, you're basically announcing to the assistive technology, I'm changing to Tagalog, which that's an interesting book. We got part Swahili, part Tagalog. But and then again, please, when you're done with the second language, switch back to the primary language. Because if you just try and imagine if you're reading a book in English and then a section switches into Swahili, the assistive technology doesn't know unless you tell it. So it's going to try and read the Swahili text in English, which is a very unpleasant experience. And if you don't switch back, it'll go into Swahili and it's going to try to read the English in Swahili, which is also a very unpleasant experience. So just be careful. It's like turning your lights on and off. Oh,
Um,
somebody asked about Atticus. I see somebody asked about Atticus. So I had a great talk
yeah.
with the founder at Atticus, and we're working on helping them become fully accessible. So we're not there yet. They're not in the program. They haven't been approved by Benetech, but I spoke with the founder. We had a very good talk, and
Oh,
I asked
good.
him why he named his company after my dog, which is a whole separate conversation.
I'm so glad to hear that. We also have a question from someone asking if Scrivener is helpful with accessibility issues. Do they have any checkers or like Word has one?
So I am not, what's a good way to say this? I'm going to say I'm unaware.
Okay.
How's that? Oh, somebody else answered for me. Thank you.
Scrivener is not geared for it, Judy says. So we'll get them on our list of people that need to talk to you. All right. So another software question. How about Google Docs accessibility? Do they have tools or what can you expect from Google Docs?
I would encourage you to stay away from Google Docs because there are some significant challenges.
Okay.
If you're concerned about accessibility, right? I'm not saying no, I'm not saying you can't do it, but there are other options which would be more inherently accessible.
Okay.
That was not boo Google. I'm a big Google guy. That's not the issue.
Right. If you are working with a traditional publisher, um, where does the burden of responsibility lie? Would you consider the responsibility with the publisher to do this appropriately? I would consider it their responsibility.
In most cases, I would agree, Jane. Certainly, the publisher is the one who produces the finished product, both from a production standpoint and also from a sales and distribution standpoint. So, yes, there are certain things, and I'll give you one example. Taylor and Francis, one of the largest publishers in the world, they have it in their acquisition contracts now. If there are images in your book, it is your responsibility to do the image descriptions.
Okay. That makes
I'm not
sense.
saying every author who signs, allows that clause, but that is in their general acquisition now for new works. So things like image, and the logic there is you're writing the book. You put that image in there. You should know why you put it in there. And so here's another chance to tell a super quick story about why technology is useful but doesn't solve the answer. So picture, if you will, three books, right? All three books have exactly the same image of the Eiffel Tower. The first book is a cookbook, and on the section about crepes, somebody decided it'd be fun to have a picture of the Eiffel Tower. It's not adding any information. It's not going to tell me how to deal with the eggs or whip the batter or anything like that. So we have a rule there, which is it. This is a descriptive image, and there's actually a tag that says image description. The image description is decorative, and the assistive technology will skip it because it's not going to help me do the make the crepes, right? Another book, travel log, same exact picture of the Eiffel Tower, and you're going to put in your section in Paris, this or that about Charles Eiffel or whatever it is you're going to say because you've included that picture and there's some reason why the picture's there, so you explain, right? The third book is a college engineering book, and we're going to talk about the tensile strength of structural iron. So you have something very different to say there. And AI is not going to know if they can even recognize the Eiffel Tower. It's not going to know what's going on and how to do all that kind of stuff. In time, perhaps, once AI gets better about absorbing the surrounding words and the context, it can help you. I'm not saying it can't do it. I'm just saying, and that's a super simple example that anyone can relate to. Cookbook, travel log, engineering book, same exact picture. That requires humans.
Yes. Sandra also raises a really interesting question. should publishers have accessibility offices or like a point person for accessibility? I don't know if that exists, honestly, but I bet you know.
So certain publishers do have, I'll go back to Taylor and Francis as an example. So Taylor and Francis has an accessibility committee company-wide for everything they do, their books, their journals, their internal documentation, their website, everything. That's a massive organization, global organization. Other folks have people in their production areas who really care about accessibility, and I want to give a shout out to Alice Del Negro, who is the single person at Simon & Schuster who got them through GCA. He has a team. I know it wasn't just him, but he was the driver in that. A lot of the textbook publishers, for a wide variety of reasons, have accessibility teams or working groups or things like that. Your run-of-the-mill publisher probably does not. There are always advocates. When you think about how many people there are, I don't know how many times I've given talks of this nature where somebody said, well, my cousin who's left-handed has dyslexia. I'm like, okay, well, then we double statistic there. So when you start to explain to people, I can't see blue and green, and they're like, wow, I never thought about that. My logo is blue and green. Ooh, so people people generally understand that it's an issue and that it impacts themselves or people they know or care about and love, or perhaps their business. So it varies from house to house. I can tell you there are a lot of one of my examples, which I was unable to show, is an indie publisher in Canada, in Newfoundland, who's fully digitally accessible because it was important to them and they did it. They're GCA certified. Their books are fantastic. So it comes down to will.
So, a question about the alt text. If you provide alt text, if you're the author providing the alt text for visual items on the cover of a book, and you're delivering this through Microsoft Word, which most authors are, will that alt text be automatically uploaded when you upload the book, say, to Amazon KDP or wherever it's going?
I would say in general, yes. Um, and the reason I say in general, yes, is there are so many quirks in the KDP submission process. Things don't always go like they're supposed to go. But in general, yes. Amazon and Vital Source, the two big sellers in their areas, are very respectful of the title metadata and the accessibility elements. So in general, yes.
Great. Could you identify the indie publisher you just mentioned that has fantastic accessible digital books? Do you recall the name of it?
Sure, yeah, that's Goose Lane Editions.
Goose Lane Editions. I'll just put that into the chat.
And the link, Jane, the link in the Amazon link in the deck goes directly to one of their books.
Terrific. Okay. And there is someone wondering, this is from Jim. He's got a memoir coming out, and his publisher tells him the book is accessible. Are you available to review the book and rate its accessibility?
Send me an email, Jim, and I'll see what we can do. Again, we're not in the create business, but we'll give it a quick run over. The two things you should do first, Jim, before you send it to me, is run EPUB check. Just go on the web and grab it, and then run Ace by Daisy. Go on the web and grab it. They're both free, and you can make your determination. And if you like what you see or you're confused or whatever, still feel free to email me, and please tell me who your publisher is. So I might have some thoughts on that as well.
Great. I think we have finally reached the end of the questions. That was a really great set of curious people to respond to. Oh wait, we have one more. Hold on. Um, if you're writing this alt text for your images, should you be describing the colors? For example, this author has a book with pictures of flowers. It's just decorative, and I'm wondering what sort of alt text I should add for them. Image of fortnight lily seems unhelpful.
Well, it depends on what you're trying to convey, right? If you're trying to describe if you're literally trying to describe the flower, then yes, you should say the color, you should say it has a four petal pattern or whatever it is, right? If it's primarily decorative because it goes with some other part of what you're doing, then you can just say it's this kind of flower and it's purple or whatever. So it comes down to why is the picture there? That goes back to my Eiffel Tower example. And how important is it that the person understands the picture related to why it is there? So if it's a book about flowers, then you describe it as if you were talking to me on the phone.
Mhm.
If it's not a book about flowers, you just have a flower in there, then put enough in there so somebody knows it's a flower and it's purple, and you're probably good.
Great. Okay. We're going to end it there. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today on this issue. Thank you again, Michael. I really enjoyed this, and I hope you all benefited from his vast knowledge about accessibility.
I appreciate the opportunity, Jane, and I appreciate all the folks attending and a lot of really great questions.
Thank you all. I hope to see you again soon. Have a great afternoon.
Bye bye.